Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Israel has vowed to respond to the missile attack that Iran launched late on Tuesday. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned Tehran that it had made a big mistake. Now, Iran has said that any such retaliation will be met with an even tougher backlash. Now, these threats of retaliation against one another have pushed long-standing concerns over escalation towards a regional war in West Asia. Israel has just attacked a Russian airbase in Syria. It's continuing its attacks in Lebanon. Now, Israel and Iran have been engaged in a year-long shadow war, attacking each other's assets without admitting responsibility. However, these attacks have increased during the current war in Gaza, sparked by the Palestinian group Hamas's murderous rampage on Israeli civilians on the 7th of October last year. On another level, the Iran-Israel conflict is one of the world's most bizarre conflicts. Iran is over 1,000 kilometers away from Israel. They have no land borders and no land disputes. Their closest point is more than 900 kilometers apart. Now that's roughly the distance between New Delhi and Gujarat. And if one looks at a map of comparison between the two countries, Iran is 1.6 million square kilometers. It's bigger than the Indian states of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra put together. And Israel, on the other hand, is a country the size of the Indian state of Manipur. But size doesn't matter here because Israel has one of the world's strongest militaries. The Israeli Prime Minister just said that his military can reach any part of Iran. And that's what's adding to the anxiety of a larger regional war. If Israel were to strike at Iran, how would it go about it? We look at the scenarios that will play out in the next couple of days. If Israel responds to further such attacks, what will Iran then do? And Israel is determined to take on all its enemies at once in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Yemen and Syria. Can it do this? Joining me to discuss this today are Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former DG-Infantry, Dr. Zakir Husain, a Middle East expert, and my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul in the studio with me. Aditya, start by setting this up for us. What are your sources from Israel telling you, right? What's the mood in Israel right now, just after this unprecedented ballistic missile attack by Iran on Tuesday?
Well, the mood is firstly, of course, determined that there needs to be an action, there needs to be revenge, because yes, Israel had gone after terror actors. Yes. It had gone after Ismail Haniyeh,
yes.
It had gone after Nasrallah, it had gone after Fuad Shukr and several others.
Surgical strikes against leaders,
very precision
terrorist
strikes.
Leaders.
Yeah. So why did Iran directly engage in a confrontation with Israel? That is the entire question. And US, UK, Europe and several other countries have come and said that we completely support and defend the right of Israel to respond, and that too proportionately.
Yes.
You know, one of the nuclear facilities of Israel also came under attack during this entire missile. Thankfully, there was no major casualties. Thankfully, there was not major destruction.
Yes.
But now we expect, and a war cabinet meeting has just concluded few hours ago, which has made a pledge that there will be a decisive and a very strong reaction to whatever has happened. In fact, you know, what is Israel now doing is that it again is going specifically after characters who've been involved in leading or in some kind of a supply chain of Hezbollah, Hamas and other actors. Only this night, you know, a few hours ago, Aziz Laha, you know, has been killed. Now this Aziz Laha is this famous photograph from 2000 during the second Intifada, when 2 Israeli soldiers in Ramallah were killed after being abducted, and not just killed, they were lynched. And there was this famous photograph of Aziz Laha holding his 2 hands with blood of both these soldiers along it. So Israel is choosing these characters in Gaza, in Lebanon and other areas before they can actually take revenge. But now a very important surgical strike, I would say, or a limited strike has also begun on ground. But we are told that heavy casualties have also happened. As of now, Israel has admitted that 8 soldiers have been killed and close to 40 are injured right now. But the casualties could increase because in one of the villages, which was predominantly, covered very well by the IDF thought that we could enter very nicely and, put our operations in place. But there was a trap. And the elite commando unit of Israel got trapped and 8 soldiers got killed in that. But I do not see that, there is a lot of speculation about when this attack will happen. Of course, Israel is certainly going to attack. We'll have to see whether this will be Iranian nuclear facilities or other, infrastructure and
we'll come to that later in the show, Aditya. But thanks for setting this up for us. And in fact, my colleague Sumit Chaudhary from TV9 Bharatvarsh joins us live from the ground in Lebanon. He's in fact the first Indian reporter on the ground in Lebanon, which is under increasing attack. Sumit, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Tell us what the situation is like right now in southern Lebanon, where you're standing.
Well, the situation is not that good, especially because last month also I've traveled to South Lebanon, especially to all those areas in the Bekaa Valley, into the Golan Heights. But now situation has drastically changed from last 1 month. Right now, the situation is nobody is feeling safe in Beirut itself. I have traveled early morning to the one of the most prominent or the epicenter of Hezbollah, that is the Dahia area, and that area is almost like a ghost town, which I've noticed in the South Lebanon last month.
Sumit, Dahia is the suburb where Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah was when that building, the bunker was demolished. Is that the same place?
Well, Sandeep, definitely the same place. I have traveled to all those areas, especially to the areas which have been attacked very recently by the Israeli Air Force. And when I reached to that area, I've been told that evacuate this area as soon as possible because Israel is going to target this area immediately in some time. So the situation is very tense. Last month, which I faced, that people have been feeling a comfort zone, especially into the areas of Beirut. But now the situation is drastically changed. Now the people have a fear that now the Israel is going to target the main areas of Beirut. But as my colleague Aditya has been explaining the situation in the South Lebanon, the situation is changed in South Lebanon as well. Although yes, the Israeli ground forces have moved to the South Lebanon area, but they are stepping very carefully. They are stepping into all these areas very carefully. They don't want to rush into all those areas because we have seen the casualties on the Israeli side also. In 2006, when Israeli forces entered to all these areas, they have faced a major casualties. Their artillery vehicles have been captured by the Hezbollah. So that is the main concern for the Israeli forces still. In 2024, they wanted to enter, but they want that the casualty should not be that much high, which was in 2006. So they have been stepping very carefully. But yes, Israel is now fully focused that they wanted to neutralize, they wanted to destroy Hezbollah, not only into the South Lebanon but also into the Dahia and other the main particular areas nearby to the Beirut as well. Sandeep.
Sumit, thanks for giving us that perspective from the ground there. So this confirms for us is the fact that Israel is going ahead with the planned ground assault into southern Lebanon. It's not holding back while it's targeting Iran on another front.
Well, right now their main focus is not only because we have seen after eliminating Nasrallah, their main target will be all those commanders who will be the next commander of the Hezbollah. So they have been targeting pinpoint locations not only into the Dahia but also to the major nearby areas of Beirut. So they in Heret. Today morning they have targeted the Heret area where they got information that one of the commanders is doing a meeting. So they target that particular building. And most probably the strategy behind all these attacks, they wanted to target the command and control center. They wanted to target the commanders, local commanders who have been charged, who have been the main commanders of Hezbollah. So their strategy is very clear. They wanted to neutralize as much as possible so that when the ground forces move deep inside to the South Lebanon, that particular time, there is no point of retaliation from the Hezbollah side. So their strategy is very clear. So they wanted to neutralize all the aggression or the retaliation which comes from the Hezbollah, then only the ground forces will move to the south, to the other parts of the South Lebanon.
Thank you very much, Sumit, for giving us that ground perspective. Our wishes are with you. Take care of yourself, my friend. Stay safe and keep bringing us updates from the battle zone in Lebanon. General Kulkarni, it's every day marks a new escalation in the crisis in West Asia. You're looking at new red lines crossed. First it was that Iran has never directly attacked the territory of Israel. That line was crossed in April. On Tuesday, they attacked with 180 ballistic missiles, another red line that's crossed. How do you think Israel is going to retaliate? As it seems very clearly, Aditya was just telling us that the Israeli war cabinet has vowed to retaliate. How will this retaliation play out? Will it be an attack on Iran's energy infrastructure? Will it be an attack on nuclear facilities? Or will they just confine it to IRGC assets, IRGC bases and infrastructure?
Thank you, Sandeep. At the very outset, I would say if Israel does not want to escalate and at the same time, Israel wants to take revenge, it will be so much better that Israel does nothing at the moment with Iran. It leaves Iran to itself, to whatever Iran has done, and leave it to uncertainty. Because that uncertainty is what is going to keep Iran on tenterhook. Right now, Israel should focus on getting up to the Litani River. That is the most important thing. Because Gaza is something which is now right under their control. It will not take very long to now completely take control of Gaza. But as regards the southern Lebanon is concerned, because from North Israel, over 70,000 people have been displaced. They need to get back. And because otherwise, a small country like Israel with a population of just less than a crore, and it does show that 80 to 90,000 people are internally displaced. Well, it's absolutely evident that things are not normal in Israel, and that might just be a cause of concern even for the Israelis. So, best is, first and foremost, how to get into southern Lebanon. In southern Lebanon per se, even if we go back to that resolution 1701 of UN, it was Lebanese army and a contingent of 50 countries to monitor that entire area between the Litani River and the Blue Line. Now, between the Blue Line and the Litani River, the Lebanese army, over a period of time, have got replaced with Hezbollah. And this particular UNIFIL, which is over there, unable to monitor anything. Notwithstanding, Israel may be having a tremendous amount of information, intelligence, whatsoever it may, but despite that, they've suffered casualties. So Israel must not take it easy that they seem to have complete control, they can hit anywhere and everywhere. It's perfectly fine to say so. But to be able to understand the fact that it is an ideological war, at the same time, strength also is being shown. A military might and an ideological war. And one country showing its military might, the other one using terrorism as an instrument to prove its ideology is better than the other one.
It's an ideological war, absolutely. Yes, please continue, General.
And therefore, I would put, Sandeep, that until and unless that buffer zone, which Israel pulled back in the year of 2000, and 2006 gave a feeling to Hezbollah that they've been able to push the Israelis south of the Blue Line. That shouldn't be so. I think Israel should occupy that 1,000 square kilometers, which allows it to be a buffer, and just a question of 27 kilometers. And the most is 27 in the central, and about 6 odd kilometers to the eastern side. And once they are onto the Litani River, I think that would give enough message to Hezbollah that stay away, don't do it, and at the same time they get to that little land of 1,000 square kilometers as a buffer. In Gaza also, they will continue to, and subsequently be able to control that buffer zone with the help of UNIFIL. So Lebanese army or Hezbollah substituted by Israel and UNIFIL to monitor the southern Lebanon, and Gaza also to have a UN force. So you have a Gaza UN force, you have there also UN force, and the Israelis. So therefore the Israelis feel secure, and at the same time Iran, which is the mastermind of Hamas, Hezbollah and Houthi, they would get a clear message that it is much better not to use terrorism and to be a normal state and not a radicalized state. And Houthi needs to be sorted out nice and proper by an international body, because USA and UK have already started tackling the Houthis. There's no way that international sea lanes of communication must be obstructed by anybody, and definitely not to the terrorist organization.
Thank you, General Kulkarni. So Israel would primarily like to focus on southern Lebanon and not expend its anger on attacking Israel. That's what Iran, my mistake. That's what you're saying, and they would focus on creating a buffer zone that would protect Israeli civilians. But I want to ask Dr. Zakir Husain this, who's been listening to this discussion very patiently. Dr. Husain, Israel wants revenge for that attack on Tuesday. It says it is going to strike. War cabinet has approved it. Do you see a major Israeli attack on Iran coming of a like that we haven't seen before? The previous attack in response to the April attack by Iran was a smaller attack. It was a more precise surgical strike for which they never took credit. How will it be different this time around? You think the pressure on Israel is that much more to respond? And if there is a response, will there be an all-out war between Iran and Israel?
What I feel that we have started this debate with a presumption that Iran is a terrorist and a radical state. So debate is not in that light. We have to understand why Israel has not killed Hania in Qatar.
No, we didn't say that Iran is a terrorist. We said that they have been propping up proxies.
Why Israel has not killed Hania? And my question is why Israel has not killed Hania in Qatar, where he was living for the last several years. Why he has not killed Hania when he was in other states like Syria and others? Because Israel wanted to drag Iran in the war, and it has been successful. And it was very clear that if I go with Iran against Iran, it cannot sustain. America will jump into. And that's why Israel has provoked Iran to do this, and Iran has also right to defend and create these preemptive things, which it has been doing. Now coming to this time attacks, certainly Netanyahu and Israel and US and the response coming from the Western countries, including Australia, it means that response will be very heavy. Number one. Second, when it is going to happen? I feel that partially it will happen now, and full-fledged maybe after the US election, that it may not impact upon the US election because Kamala Harris and Biden are saying that we are pro, we have some moderate stand, some moderate heart for Palestinians. So what is going to happen this time? They will target, first of all, I feel that the way Israel is targeting the leaders, their first target may be Ayatollah Khamenei. Second, there are two nuclear centers, Natanz and Fordo, but it is also, we should know that these two centers are in a mountainous area beneath 1.5 kilometer, and that will be tough for America even to break that thing. Let us see what happens, because America supplied the bunker buster bomb to Israel to carry forward that one. Second, that oil installation may be targeted, and you also said that IRGC centers may be targeted. Pipeline, oil pipeline, there are 6 major oil pipelines that may be targeted. Iranian port may be targeted, and if Iranian port are targeted, then our Chabahar may be suffering from that. And already our stakes in Haifa of Adani has been in doldrum, and again if war goes further, then Kenya recently, Adani has taken a stake in Kenyan port, that may also be affected. What will be the consequences? What Iran has? Iran said that if such activities are taken against me, I will stop oil supplies, I will attack all the bases of America, and I will stop Hormuz, Red Sea, and many more things like that.
So this is exactly, Dr. Husain, this is exactly the scenario that we are worried about. The fact that this could actually spiral out of control and become an all-out war, engulfing the whole region and bringing in external powers in United States, for instance. Aditya, that's a big, it's within the realm of possibility.
Well, absolutely. I quite agree with what Dr. Zakir said. I believe that immediately, there will not be a response in haste.
Right.
There will be some limited strikes that will happen.
Yes.
Israel will focus on southern Lebanon. They have achieved a lot strategically in Gaza already. It is under their control. They will try to make limited strikes both through Navy, through Air Force and through a ground operation in southern Lebanon, and that we'll see over the next few weeks.
Right.
Finally, the ultimate aim, I believe, of Israel, which many are not speaking about, would be a regime change in Iran.
Yes.
Whether that will happen, how it will happen, because even if you see a lot of government, spokespersons in Israel, even former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has very vociferously said that now is the time to have this regime change, which will not only benefit Israel, but larger Middle East peace process, and also United States, Europe and others who have been engaged with Israel and supporting them. Finally, to believe that Iran has been dragged into this kind of a conflict would be, a very myopic thinking, because Iran is propping up these proxies.
Yes.
If Hezbollah, Houthis and now Hamas are continuously going to Tehran and meeting Khamenei, IRGC leaders and etc. Of course, Iran is directly involved in this entire conflict. And Iran is not only propping up these characters, Iran also wants to decimate Jews and Israel completely.
Yes.
So how can one say that, there should have been an attack in Qatar and other places?
Right.
So I perfectly believe that Israel is in no mood to let it go or have some kind of a deal or a ceasefire at this particular stage.
Absolutely.
I think that too would be a myopic thinking. Israel is not going to succumb under pressure of United States anymore.
Right.
It has calculated its risks and what are the casualties that will happen, but it will continue this long war, perhaps next 6 months, until there's a new reality, not just in Gaza, but all across its borders.
A war of attrition indeed, Aditya. I mean, this sounds very ominous. A long war lasting for another few months. A war of attrition that could possibly drag Iran into the conflict, as it has already done so, and possibly expand, bringing in other major world powers. And that is exactly the scenario that we've been warning about, an all-out war between Iran and Israel. It's not good for anyone, but that seems to be the road that a lot of the countries involved in this conflict seem to be taking. But thank you very much, General Sanjay Kulkarni, Dr. Zakir Husain, and my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul for joining us this evening to talk about the possibility, the spectre rather, of an all-out war in West Asia. An all-out conflict in West Asia could directly impact India. 8.9 million Indians are employed in the Gulf. They send back $35 billion in remittances. India imports 35% of its oil from the Gulf, and 79% of its gas also come from the GCC country. This is worth $100 billion. A disruption of oil and gas or an increase in oil prices could impact India's economy. It's the world's fastest growing major economy. Now, India also needs Iran for the north-south transport corridor linking us to Russia. It's invested $120 million in the Chabahar port in Iran. India accesses Afghanistan and Central Asia only through Iran and that one port of Chabahar. Now, India is friends with both Israel and Iran, and hence it has a lot of stakes in averting conflict. For India, the fallout of war will be risks of trade disruption, higher shipping rates, and increased risks for the IMEC corridor and, of course, the INSTC corridor that we just mentioned. What can India do, and how will a direct Israel-Iran conflict affect India? Joining me to discuss this evening are Ambassador Jayant Dasgupta, former ambassador to the WTO, Dr. Faisal Ahmed, Professor of International Business, Ford School of Management and Trade and Geopolitical expert, live from the UAE, and in the studio is my colleague Shweta Kothari. Welcome to the News9 Plus show. Shweta, just break down for us how the markets have reacted so far to this specter of a all-out war between Israel and Iran.
Rather badly, and not just in India, but global markets, also Asian markets, really following what happened overnight in the US. Now, if you look at both Nifty and Sensex, which are about 2.1% down each, Nifty and Sensex, Nifty especially losing about 1,000 points, and its lowest since September of this year. So essentially, there is a direct impact on Indian markets, and we know for a fact now, Sandeep, that anything that happens globally, geopolitically, has worst sort of impact on the markets, because it's easy to spook markets, and markets clearly in India are spooked right now. But it's not just the markets, come to think of it. I think you mentioned a whole host of factors that will be impacted and have been impacted. I also want to take a minute to talk about crude oil prices.
Absolutely.
And we do know that the Middle East is the energy hub for the world. And India, particularly, as you rightly pointed out, exports a substantial amount of its oil needs from the oil-producing countries, the OPEC nations, which include Iran, Iraq, UAE, Saudi Arabia. And what we're looking at right now is, and I have some numbers here, crude oil on 1st of October was about $70 a barrel. On 3rd of October, it was about $75 a barrel. Now, it's way below its historical highs of about $100 a barrel, but this is still a substantial increase. Now, oil is usually imported into India as futures contract. So while there is no immediate upping in the oil prices, either petrol or diesel, but if this conflict were to continue or were to escalate, we're looking at higher oil prices as
higher oil prices, which could affect inflation and have an impact on the economy as well. But Dr. Faisal, you're in the UAE, you're literally in the eye of the storm there. Give us a sense of what you're feeling around you right now. How are the markets over there reacting? What are businesses saying in the UAE? Is there a possibility of an all-out conflict between Israel and Iran that could, engulf the entire region like it did in '91?
I think in the UAE there are a lot of issues coming up, a lot of discussions which are going on about how this conflict is going to unfold. But at the moment, what we see that there is a lot of pessimism in the market as well. That if it escalates, and there are many probabilities and possibilities that is going to escalate in the near future. Because once this war has started, there are possibilities that yes, it's not going to stop, because the two sides are well prepared for handling it, and they have actually enhanced their preparedness, and only then they have come to a position that they are going to a conflict like this. I think here a lot of things are going to, if you look at the general perception of people, for instance, they are now attuned that something wrong is going to happen. This is the general public perception which is coming up, and how to handle it. Now, there are few things, if you look at from the perspective of how they want it to be resolved. One issue that people talk about has been traditionally the role of United States into such type of geopolitical conflict, and how the United States is going to manage it. But then today, primarily, if you look at the Indian diaspora which is there, and the way China is engaging into the Middle East region, today people are looking at India and China as well, that how India and China together can provide some geostrategic solutions to the crisis in the Middle East. So now people are just fed up of what the United States would be possibly doing to end a conflict like this, because they have seen Ukraine, they have seen other issues coming up, they have seen, previously the Bab el Mandab and all those things. Where people are very clear that in the Middle East, that United States is showing a withdrawal syndrome, and perhaps does not have the will to go for a solution in the Middle East.
Right. Absolutely.
And
it's a very tense situation right now in the Middle East. And Ambassador Dasgupta, is it right to ask if this is the 1991 moment in 2024, and 1991 being the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, which saw a large-scale evacuation of Indians from the region? It caused us great concern. It literally led to the collapse of our economy in the short term. Should we worry about a larger conflict between Israel and Iran spilling out of control, and therefore are the stakes for India that much higher for us to play peacemaker between two countries which we have very good relations with, Israel and Iran?
It's a very important question. I think there are a comparatively large number of Indians in Israel. As far as Iran is concerned, of course, there are some Indians, but not all that many. But if the conflict between Israel and Iran were to go up a few notches, there would be the need to evacuate Indians definitely from Israel, and on a similar basis from Iran. But the people in Iran may be dispersed over a wider geographical area, so that may pose problems. So there is, of course, a lot of ifs and buts involved in the future scenario over the unfolding, which is likely to unfold over the next few weeks.
Right.
Because Israel has definitely threatened retaliation.
Yes.
And Iranians have also said that there could be a very nasty surprise for Israel if they were to retaliate.
That's exactly the kind of language that spooks markets, Ambassador Dasgupta, you know, that there will be retaliation, we will teach you a lesson and all of that. And we have India right in the middle, and it's very unlike 1991, Shweta, because India was not the economy that it was in 91, and 2024 our stakes are so much higher to ensure the there's peace and stability, and our economic engine remains on track. What is the government doing, in your view, to ensure that we are cushioned from all of these external shocks?
So let me take you back to 2023, which is when we saw Suez Canal passage being attacked along the Red Sea corridor by Houthis rebel. And Houthis, as you rightly pointed out, they are a group that can do what they feel like. And if a situation of this kind actually happens, Suez Canal, which is literally responsible for 12% of the global trade worldwide, also impacts India in a big way. So what happens if the global supply chains as we have them today are impacted? It results in cost of goods and services and movement of freight and cargo going up. So insurance premiums for these ships go up. They have to find an alternative route. And what is the alternative route? The Cape of Good Hope, which is good 6,000 nautical miles diversion from the trade route that India would like to take. So all in all, there is an economic impact not just on the exports but also on imports from India. So oil being one, but all of other goods and services and import and export balance goes awry. And that doesn't work in favor of a country which is hoping to become an export nation, an export driven nation. So all in all, I think the impact is going to be extremely large if this war were to escalate any further. But if history has any lessons from 1991 onward up until 2023, then I think India is now preparing for alternative supply chains. It is making more within its confines, its boundaries. So that is where Make in India program, and and that is going to give us kind of a cushion into building for India, making for India and India's own consumption. Some of it India can do. Others India can't, because remember, India imports at least 95% of its oil needs.
It's a complete,
and in which case we are totally
importer.
dependent on oil producing countries.
Absolutely. Dr. Faisal, it's never been more important for India to play peacemaker in this situation in West Asia, given the fact that we just outlined, as Shweta was just saying, that our stakes in this war are of the kind that they've never been before. Not only do we have our citizens in the line of fire, we also have our energy lifelines being threatened by this war. Is there a possibility of India being taken very seriously as peacemaker? The Foreign Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, has made that pitch. Possibly the Prime Minister could say that in the next couple of days as well. But is there room for an Indian-mediated ceasefire in West Asia currently?
Yeah, this is a very interesting point, and I would say, of course, it is, because see, what is happening today that we see is gradually you have seen in the Middle East that China has made inroads into the peacemaking and strategic solution providing in the Middle East, right? We have seen that China doing it. In case of Israel and in case of Iran, if we see that India had good relations, maintained good relations with Israel, also with Iran also, right? From the election days when we have seen when even so many parties were there, and a coalition government had to be formed some 2 years ago. And after that, Mr. Netanyahu came. So the point is that we do have a possibility, and the reasons are like, first is that we do have a stake.
Yes.
Because
we have enormous stakes, in fact.
Enormous stakes, yeah,
Yes.
enormous stakes. Because, you know, we have people who are already there. We have stakes which are already there. Just talk about few things like, besides oil,
Yes.
I'll also talk about Chabahar. I'll also,
Yes.
I think I'll talk about IMEC as well. Why not? Because we proposed that project. So Chabahar, we have been making huge investments since a long time. And the issue has been about the connectivity. As
Yes.
you rightly mentioned about the north-south corridor as well. At the same time, in the last G20, which happened in Delhi, we have seen that we talked about something called a IMEC, which is
That's
India,
right.
Middle
Yeah.
East, Europe Economic Corridor.
Yes.
So when we talked about the IMEC, you would see that IMEC has a huge potential. I mean, how
Yes.
feasible it is, how quickly we can do it, that's a different thing altogether to study. But then IMEC has a huge potential because it in some way brings about India's possible outreach to both Middle East and Europe in terms of connectivity, which
Yes.
China has already done through the Belt and Road Initiative.
Belt and Road, absolutely. Yes.
So if you look at China's BRI,
Yes.
one of there are 6 different economic corridors in the BRI and a maritime component as well. But if you just look at one of those components of the Belt and Road Initiative, which is
Yes.
the China Central Asia West Asia
Yeah.
economic corridor, which is China traversing through Central Asia
That's
and West
the
Asia.
land component of the Belt and Road
Yeah.
Initiative.
Yeah. So this particular thing actually somewhere coincides with the India Middle East Europe corridor.
Yes.
And there is one more, which is the new Eurasian land bridge, where the trains are already running, which is connecting to Antwerp and
Yes,
Rotterdam
of course.
in Netherlands.
No, your point is
So-
well made, Dr. Faisal. You know, the fact that
Yeah.
we are dependent on all of these corridors for the Indian economy to grow. We must have access to these corridors. But Ambassador Dasgupta, very quickly, closing comments from you. The fact that, is this now really the time for India to step up and play Vishwa Guru, mediate in this conflict in West Asia? Because we have friends on both sides. We are possibly one of the very few countries that are trusted by both Israel and Iran. Given our high stakes there, what is it that you think the government must do in the next couple of days to ensure that this conflict doesn't turn into an all-out regional war?
India, of course, could play an important role in bringing about kind of a rapprochement and negotiated, at least the beginning of negotiations.
Yes.
But the main role will have to be played by the US, because the Israelis are totally dependent on the US and to a certain extent on France.
Right.
And they keep consulting with both these countries. As far as Iran is concerned, the US has very little influence over Iran.
Yes.
But the Russians and the Chinese do have growing influence over Iran and growing, of course, collaboration on various matters, including military matters.
Right.
So it will need much more than what India can bring to the table.
Absolutely.
It will need the Russians, the Chinese, and the Americans to get together and stop escalation. First, the
Yes.
Israelis should not retaliate against the nuclear installations of Iran.
Yes.
Because the Iranians have been, using their nuclear installations to produce more enriched uranium.
Yes.
And of course, they have not tested any nuclear weapon so far. But
Yes.
technology having improved, it is not very difficult to have a dirty bomb at least.
Yes.
And they have the missiles. And some of the missiles from newspaper reports have indeed hit targets in Israel.
Right.
So it could lead to a huge conflagration.
Right.
And that is what the Americans must step in to prevent, first of all.
Yes.
And the Russians and the Chinese, I think they will also have a role to play in this.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Ambassador Dasgupta, for outlining the fact that escalation prevention should be the priority for all powers concerned, especially India, given our very high stakes in preventing an escalation in the conflict in West Asia. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us, and of course Shweta Kothari here in the studio with me.